Oh, it's so strange from a legal perspective. The way that it's working is because Obama's Surgeon General went on Good Morning America and said that marijuana is like literally, this is the quote, humanity's been looking for a panacea for a very long time, and marijuana may be that panacea. And so every time they've tried to prosecute marijuana after that, they raise a challenge against the Schedule One rule, because Schedule One means no known medical
Yeah, no
use.
medical, no nothing.
And so when they try to prosecute people, they just go, "Well, your Surgeon General said that there's a known medical use now," and so rather than address that, because the courts could strike down the whole scheduling, the FBI just said at that time, they're like, "Well, technically, we didn't actually have any funding for that arrest, so that arrest shouldn't have happened," and they never had to address the fact that the law no longer makes sense.
Right. Like they've found way too many medical uses for it. It's just ridiculous. And like when you compare it to like alcohol or tobacco, it's not even a comparison. It's like which is worse for society, and yet we just tax and regulate those. So I mean, it's yeah.
Is it
I
legal in your?
don't think. No, in North Carolina, it's completely illegal,
Oh,
except like hemp-based products, which is
yeah.
a whole weird thing because they sell it, but it doesn't have THC in it. So it's really weird. I don't know, um, but it's funny. But like back on the Biden thing, like if he stays in at this point, I don't see how he wins. And don't get me wrong, I understand all the people who are like, I'll vote for his dead body. I mean, yeah, I understand that, but those aren't the people who are going to decide this election. Literally, people understand that the entire American election is going to be decided by about 100,000 people in 3 to 5 states. The entire thing. Those 100,000 people in those 3 to 5 states are picking our president. And right now, they think Joe Biden is a senile old man. And like, even if you're just a normie, if you're like, okay, we got a convicted felon on one side whose brain seems to work. And then we have this other guy who's got a great list of accomplishments, but we know his brain does not function. Which one do you give the nuclear codes to? And a lot of people are going, I'm going with the felon. And that's going to screw the country.
Well, and people also forget that many states have made voting difficult, right? Like you have to wait in lines. They've reduced the number of polls and stuff like that. So like in those states, people have to be fired up to endure that process in order to cast their vote. And Biden is just not exciting in any way because I mean he's completely given up on running on his record from the first 4 years or promising anything for the next four. It's
But
just I am not Trump.
he's he's too busy now just saying that his brain works. He's going to spend the rest of this campaign trying to prove to America that his brain works. And every time he fails to do that, it's going to get worse. And
And it
don't
would
get me
be
wrong, he
if
still
he
might win because people really hate Trump. And I actually think Trump has lost way more support than the polling is showing. And my anecdotal evidence for this, just like this guy said, is I know quite a few people who voted for Trump who are now voting for Biden. And I don't see the flags anymore. Like 4 years ago, I live in North Carolina. 4 years ago, at my work, half the parking lot was Trump flags. I mean, half the parking lot was Trump bumper stickers and flags and entire trucks with their entire side painted. And now I think I've seen one Trump flag this entire election cycle.
they've demoralized us so much that like no one wants to vote for anyone. It's so
No, that's why it's like if RFK Jr. just wasn't crazy, he'd be taking 70% of the polls right now. It's like, could you imagine if instead of RFK Jr. it was Jon Stewart?
I know. And you
He
did
he
suggest that he run early on. I remember when you did that.
Yeah, I made a petition on change.org over a year ago, before the primary even started, trying to get people to sign a petition to convince Jon Stewart to run because I was saying Joe Biden's brain was melting 2 years ago. And now the whole world's like, we didn't know. I'm like, how did you not know? Like, the man has held less press conferences than any president since press conferences started to exist.
Well, and I think one thing that he can't avoid that people aren't talking about is like, okay, that debate went pretty poorly. That would be bad if there wasn't a second debate coming in which we'll be reminded of how
And
busted he is, which is
the
September 10th.
the thing is debate. You can't say that that debate went poorly. A poor debate is like what DeSantis had against Newsom. That was a bad debate for DeSantis, but nobody walked away from that thinking that DeSantis's brain didn't work. That's not the same thing. You didn't lose the debate. You lost the faith that your brain functions. Those are completely different things. You're not
I
like you can't say you lost the debate. No, you lost the faith that your brain works at all. People literally think that you're just being pushed around like uh, Feinstein.
Yes. Oh, she was the
It's the
worst.
same thing over again.
Well, I think, I mean, do you? I thought his son probably told him not to run again. I know his wife is not giving up for some reason, which is so dark.
No, I think Hunter's afraid that if somebody else replaces him, that they won't pardon him when he ends up in jail.
He already refused to pardon Hunter.
Yeah, but until after the election.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
Of course, he won't pardon him before the election, but day after the election, he's going to pardon him whether he loses or wins. Doesn't matter. I'll put money on it.
Do you remember Howard Dean getting like booted out of the election for his weird, yeah?
Yeah, I remember. What was the guy's name who basically lost the election because he misspelled potato?
Yes, it was Dan Quayle.
Yeah, like that cost him the election, and now we have a man who can't finish a sentence, and they're like, "Well, you just got to stand by." It's insane.
Whose son has published pornography online and like photos of himself smoking crack. Like the fact that
Yeah,
that's
and
not.
I don't care what his kid did. Like I can't connect what his kid did to him because I don't think it's right to do that. Because I'm not my mom. You know what I mean?
I
So,
totally agree with you, but like the way things used to be would never have permitted that.
oh yeah, yeah. Like in the '80s or '90s, that would have just
Or the early
yeah.
2000s. That's when Howard Dean got booted out. Like,
And I do agree. I think that Trump has dementia as well. He's just better at hiding it.
yeah, he uses his weird, fierce. Well, and it's also the people who are attracted to him are capable of a kind of cognitive dissonance that is like acrobatic.
Yeah, that's true. He will lie to their face and they will smile and tell you he didn't when like they're holding the bag for his NFTs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, have you
I
seen
mean,
stuff about Trump with
I,
12-year-old and
yeah,
Jeffrey Epstein?
I will give Trump that he is a good grifter, probably the best ever.
So a bunch of testimony from a 12-year-old who claims to have been raped by Trump and Epstein was connected through this was released this week. And
That's
like it's
insane. I
all
haven't
there.
even seen that.
They have video footage of the woman talking, like as a 35-year-old. It's pretty shocking. And
How is that not all over the news everywhere?
I mean, I feel like it's because there's already so much lunacy, and I think the elites don't want any attention brought back to Jeffrey Epstein because I suspect like a lot of people, whether we're talking about Bill Gates to many other people had connections to Jeffrey Epstein that they would like to hide.
Yeah, facts.
And so I think that the media is just all working together to hide it. I mean, the fact that after uh, her his side woman, whatever her name was, after she got prosecuted, the fact that a list of names wasn't released immediately and that she wasn't, forced to testify against those people was shocking.
But yeah, she's the only person in history convicted of trafficking to nobody.
Yes.
Like who was she selling the people to? Like, there's no. Wait a minute. There should be a list of people that she was selling people to that should all be going to jail.
Well, another interesting question about Biden, I think, is the Democrats have been losing credibility ever since they manipulated their entire primary process to keep Bernie out. You remember, and so they have lost so much credibility. If they lose to Trump a second time because they could not stop themselves from putting up an obviously senile candidate, like who are they going to be in 2028? Like,
Well, it's kind of crazy, but I think whichever political party loses this is kind of the end of their party.
I
Because
think
how
about
does the Republican hold together once Trump's gone? And he's not
who do
making it
they,
another 10 years.
yeah, like, do they still look to him for, the MAGA anointment? Like
But that's
who
the
are the
thing is,
power
his
brokers?
people lose primaries now.
Yes.
Like the Republican Party's fallen apart too. They don't have any money. Like the Biden Harris campaign has way more money than the Trump campaign. Like, and I literally think that whichever one of these political parties loses is going to have to revamp their entire structure if they ever want to win again. And I don't see how that happens really well with the Republican Party.
Laura Trump is the co-chair of the Republican National
Yeah,
Committee.
exactly. Like he's literally kicked out everyone who's not a loyalist to him. And okay, say he lives to be 100. You've got what, 20 years tops?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
he's not in like the best shape. You know what I mean?
I'm sure he would try to run again if he's not dead.
Oh yeah, he will run again until he'll run again from prison if he ends up in prison, and he'll win the primary again from prison because his loyalists are loyal.
Well, the interesting thing to me is, so obviously, like, I got to watch my dad be one of the biggest fundraisers in the Republican Party ever, and I got to meet, God, who was that Bush guy? Fucking Karl Rove, like all these people. My dad would drag me up to the like top box during the conventions, and I met all the presidential candidates or presidents. And that was a group of people that was like really well defined and still exists within the Democrat Party. Those are the people who have enough power to determine, who would replace Biden and all that stuff. But those people are gone now. They they tried to take the party back during Trump's term, and they created that organization that was the conservative organization that was opposed to Trump. Do you remember them?
Oh, the Lincoln Project.
Yes. Um, and that was all those guys. Um, and the funny thing about them was the reason they objected to him was because of decorum. Like,
Yeah, yeah. They don't have a
it
problem with his policies. They just don't like the fact that he curses.
yes, and they didn't like the way he treated. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that was a
it's
big deal.
ridiculous. Those are the
Um,
same people who complained about Obama when he wore a tan suit.
yes, but like they just don't have that infrastructure and access to the wealthy that they used to, or it has to be reconstituted somehow. Um, because like that system was an old system of people that had like slowly built up their credibility within the party. It's the reason Bob Dole was allowed to run against Clinton. Like I remember
I
my
Yeah. See, I also think there's a new set of donors that are screwing with the old set of donors.
I mean there
Like all
might
the you got to figure all the tech money is new money. It's
that's
like the
true.
last 30 years.
But that's
And
not
all of
conservative.
that is fighting with oil barons and the people who've had the money for forever. But like all the new tech money, those are new billionaires who are throwing their money into politics. And I think that's why you're seeing such a schism in both parties.
Totally. The interesting thing was leading up to Trump, the old fundraisers, and my dad was a big part of this, were trying to get rid of the Christians because they saw the Christians as like destroying the party. They were trying to slowly push them out or make them less powerful. But then they failed to do that. And now,
The
like,
quiverful people screwed them.
yeah. And the Project 2025 thing, like, the most shocking thing about that is the end of no fault divorce. Do you know what no fault divorce is?
Yes. Yeah, they
Yeah.
want to make it to where women can't just divorce their husband unless there's a good reason
Yes.
decided by a bunch of dudes.
And those good
You know,
reasons are like
they
infidelity. Like you have to have
uh,
cheated.
the guy who's running for the governor of North Carolina, my state, he said that he thinks it should be one family, one vote,
I've heard that position.
which basically means only the men get to vote.
And
Like they're coming up with new ways to spin really horrible crap.
one thing you've got to wonder about is, and you're seeing the defection of women more broadly from that party. Like, how do they hope to retain any women?
Yeah, did you see what the guy in South Carolina said? What this guy just brought up? He said that Democrats should be hunted down by dogs.
Oh, yeah, he's saying that there's some people who deserve to be killed or whatever. He said
No,
that.
that's the governor of North Carolina. The one in South Carolina said that they should be hunted by dogs. Yeah, this is an ongoing thing. Like it's not just it's yeah, it's this is the Republican Party at this point. That's that's why I think that even with Biden's senility, he still might win because like the Republicans have gone like the whole teaching the Bible in Oklahoma, the putting the uh, Ten Commandments in schools in Louisiana. Any normal person, even a lot of normal Christians, still like the separation of church and state. You know, because they understand the concept that, well, then if a Satanist win, they're going to start teaching the Satanic Bible in school, which, would be better than the real Bible, but,
Exactly. Well, like Oklahoma isn't even the only one. Like Louisiana was the tip of the spear of that. I guess Louisiana's nuts. Like
Yeah, they've
they're
gone full theocracy.
they've just crushed their child labor laws too. Like I'm surprised. Like Biden could take up that issue, like expanding the federal child labor protections. Like there were 300,000 kids who are under the age of 15 found to be working at like McDonald's
Yeah,
and
in the middle of the night, too.
yes,
So messed up. So
like
messed up.
why
Yeah.
don't you think Biden redirects his discussion to like I'm going to end child labor? That's such a sexy issue. Like it's such an attention grabbing
You
like
would think, right? But at the same time, he would need Congress to pass it because the NLRB now has no authority.
you've seen how well it's going to get worse than that. Did you see Amazon is opposing the existence of the National Labor Relations Board on
Oh, yeah,
constitutional?
and they'll win too with the Supreme Court we have.
I mean, it's
And that's just it's over. Like it's over. Like you don't have a right to unions anymore. Like
well, I mean, I don't think they can make unions illegal. I mean, one thing is that you know,
they won't make them illegal. They'll just bring back the Pinkertons. There will
then
be
it becomes
nothing to stop them.
I think that they forget the National Labor Relations Board was also to control the unions, to prevent them from getting too powerful. Like it had that dual edged function. Um, because, it was created after the 30s when the unions were doing so well and they made the general strike illegal. Um, so they did that under like Truman or the Taft-Hartley Act. I don't know when that came out, but like in the United States, it is illegal to do a general strike, for instance.
Yeah, but all they have to do is make every state a right to work state, and unions are gone.
But you can still organize people to refuse to go to work. I mean, that's
True.
how the union movement got
It's
started.
just a
Like,
lot harder when they start firing the first person who brings up the organization.
yes, exactly.
Which is, like I said, they'll just send in the Pinkertons again. Like that's what they did before we had all these regulations.
Well, you're starting to see. Have you noticed that conservatives are becoming way more anti-corporate, like the low-grade conservatives?
Oh yeah. Well, the funny thing is everyone in America has been so ingrained that capitalism is the way the world has to work that none of them can even question whether it's like actually our economic system that is the cause of the problems.
Well, there's like even Pew Research published this thing that's saying like the Republicans' views of banks and large corporations has just like collapsed. Um, and it's the weird thing is that they can't see that the Democrats and they share that position.
right? That all the corporations suck.
But as
Well,
that
it's just like
position,
everybody wants money out of politics. Everybody. Everybody who's not a rich person wants money out of politics. It would be the easiest thing to get passed if the Senate and the House would just, ever like put it on a bill.
but like over time, it's going to be harder and harder from keeping, the blue collar Republicans and Democrats from realizing that they actually have a lot more in common. Like I feel like that moment is actually approaching.
I mean, you would think. But that's why I was so disappointed when I heard RFK Jr. was running and then I saw the stuff he was running on. I was like, dude, you had such an opportunity. Because I feel like a decent third party candidate with enough name recognition could walk into the White House.
Yes.
You just need
I mean,
enough name recognition to where the media can't ignore you.
but you brought this up. The process of becoming a candidate is so onerous. And
Especially for
I,
president.
yeah, like I feel like that hurt Jill Stein a lot. And it just discourages people from seriously challenging um, from a third party perspective. I mean, that's why I'd like you to run for Congress so we could do that because that would be fun. It's not that hard, it's just a lot of tedious work.
Yeah, well, and they make it to where it's set up so that the average person can't do it
Yes.
because of just the amount of time it takes. I mean, who has 6 months to take off just to run for Congress?
Oh, and to maintain the kind of difficult accounting ledgers that you need to in order
Right.
to properly source and do all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. So there have been people asking Kamala Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment, which you keep bringing up.
Yes. But I think if she does it, she has to bow out of the race. That's the winning strategy right now. If Biden refuses to drop down, Kamala Harris should invoke the 25th Amendment, remove him from office, and say she's not running. She's only going to be president until January. Because if she says she's running for the ticket after that, it just looks like a power grab. But if she like just takes him down and then says that she's not going to run, she's only going to be president until January, she will be like allotted as a hero. And shit, she could probably run in like 2036 and walk into the White House.
But do you think it would really look that? I mean, because he looks so bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's always going to be that contingency of really old people who like other really old people who are going to say that it's a power grab,
I know, and they know.
especially because she's a woman and you know what I mean, like, and she's always seemed kind of power hungry to begin with. So
Yeah, and they vote more than anyone. The
yeah,
older demographics, like that's the.
yeah, that's because they have time. That's all it is. They have time. They don't have to be at work. It's hard to convince somebody to take their day off and show up to a polling place, and that's why I try to get everybody to early vote. Because like where I live in North Carolina, if you can show up to early voting like 2 weeks early, and if you go early, there's nobody there. It takes like 5 minutes.
Are you guys a swing state at
Yes,
all?
absolutely.
You're one of the deciding states.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are too in
we have a
Nevada.
we have a Democratic governor, and our state house and senate is 3/4 red. They can override the governor.
Oh, that's gnarly.
Yeah, and the only reason is because we had a Democrat run who literally like a week after she won, she flipped to Republican, and then they outlawed abortion.
She was one of those plants I read about. Have you
Yeah,
heard?
yeah, it is so messed up. Like it is so messed up. Like she should be like in prison. Like that should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to run on abortion rights, and then a week after you get elected, flip your entire stance and ban abortion. especially when you were the deciding vote. Like that's insane.
I feel like that's what Kristen Cinema and Joe Manchin were also.
I I think both of them are just greedy. And Cinema's one of those ones who I actually think had ideals, and then the money changed her.
Well, it's like
Because
that
you
guy
look at
from.
Cinema, like when she first ran, she was a hardcore lefty.
Yeah,
Like
I
she
mean,
was
at
for
least.
Medicare for all kinds of stuff.
Well, that guy from Pennsylvania too, John Fetterman. He's
Oh
done.
yeah, yeah. He did the same thing. He just straight up abandoned all of his progressive principles that got him elected.
I've got to believe that they planned that because to have like, I obviously went through a huge political orientation shift in my life, and that's something that's very difficult to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, I know.
yeah, you obviously should yourself. Um,
Yeah, it takes a lot to change your cognitive biases.
if you're doing it honestly, because like you got to realize like, oh shit, I got it wrong, and there's some shame in that initially. I mean, I know I felt that way. Um, God, I'll never forget that experience when I first saw the first video by Noam Chomsky, and I was like, oh my God,
Right.
I've been
Well, the
wrong
first
about
thing,
everything.
yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Is when you learn more. But yeah, like I keep thinking that they have to take Biden out, but then I think it's really up to him, and I don't unless they invoke the 25th Amendment. Like I don't understand how he thinks he can win.
And with so many people defecting from him, I just wonder like, who is his wife's influence over him that strong? Really? Like,
He also I don't even know how on his brain is. You never know. You know what I mean? Like he might not even remember he's running in a week. That's what I'm afraid of. Is like because it's not like your brain gets better once it starts to deteriorate.
yeah.
So what's he gonna be like in the debate in September?
Well, exactly. He's gonna get embarrassed again, and then
It's gonna
there's.
be worse, and it's gonna be no time before the election at that point.
I believe Gavin Newsom is doing something. Like his tour right now across the country for Biden. Like,
I can't tell if he's just hoping that Biden passes away or if he's like trying to do something behind the scenes, but I don't see how he takes the place and the Democrats don't lose so many votes. You can't just step over Kamala Harris like that. Like there's no way to do that and you don't piss off every black woman in the country. Like you just will.
I
Like
think
Kamala Harris is qualified and in the place. You can't just step over her for an old white dude. It's the optics are terrible.
I think he's banking on his extreme charisma because, like, I know that debate with DeSantis is setting up for something. Like, he's
Oh
been
yeah,
doing things that are designed to give him a more national profile.
yeah. Well, he wants to run next year at the
In
very
20,
minimum.
you think he wants to run for senator, or you think he wants to like?
No, I think he's going to run for president in 28.
I mean, he's 56 years old though. Like, I mean, part of his appeal is that it's funny because he's a younger guy.
He's 56. That's young as heck. So in another 4 years, he'll be 60. So he'll be 20 years older than the two running now. I'm younger. I think he'll be fine. Most presidents we've been electing are 60.
But if Kamala Harris took Biden's place, she would run again.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I wouldn't be surprised if they put Newsom as her VP. But I think that's a bad plan just because they're both from California.
Yeah, I mean that is, but she sucks as a politician. Like she, I've watched
Yeah.
so many videos since we began talking about this where she just makes these
Well,
crazy gaffes. Like,
yeah, but comparing it to Biden, it's not a hard choice. Like, did you see her thing after the debate where she gave a little speech encouraging Biden and all that?
No, what was it?
It was well received. I think it was well spoken. She didn't have any like. Maybe, she sounded a whole hell of a lot better than Biden did during the debate.
I
I
well,
think
that's
that
not
Kamala Harris's
true.
best bet is to take Gretchen Whitmer as her VP, though.
But so there was this great article I'm looking for this quote from where just like everyone's talking about how she just like has no support within the party because apparently she's just so like mean and like willing to throw everyone under the bus. Um,
Honestly, we could probably use that now.
I mean, for sure. Look,
I'm kind of tired of the Democrats playing nice, honestly.
well, I always wonder like how strong is America's racism? Um, like Obama gave
Uh,
us a very distorted picture, I feel like.
I no, I feel like there's a group of people who are extremely racist in this country, but they're already voting Republican anyway.
I mean, it's true.
like like you're not they're it doesn't matter what candidate the Democrats putting up, they're going to vote Republican anyway. Like the Klan's not switching sides.
I feel like her decision to identify as the first Black and Southeast Asian person has put her in this strange racial category that causes both groups to feel like she doesn't belong to them.
Sure, but if she's smart, she'll run and won't even bring that up. She'll let everybody else bring that up.
Yes, I mean,
If she's smart, she won't mention her race or ethnicity at all, and she'll just let the media handle all that for her. All
okay,
she needs to do is come out and call Trump a liar over and over and over again. That's all she has to do,
totally.
and just say it cohesively and coherently.
But apparently she's
Like
not. What?
I was thinking, like literally, if Joe Biden's entire debate performance had just been, "He's a liar, he's a liar, he's a liar and a felon, he's a liar and a felon," if that's been the only things he had said coherently and cohesively, he'd have won the debate.
Craziest thing to me was he got that opening phrase and he couldn't even make it through that. Like he got an opener, he had to speak for
Yeah,
like
which you get to remember. Like that's something you memorize. Your opening statement and your closing statement are two things you memorize, and he messed them both up.
and you could like see him get lost. Like you could see his eyes glaze over. Like it was so strange. And that's
Yeah,
why
like I still do think that the Democrats might end up winning, just because, like I said, Trump's such a bad candidate. But their odds of winning go way up if they replace Joe Biden with anyone except
do you
Hillary
remember
Clinton.
right? Do you remember I feel like Hillary Clinton is the kind of person who would want to harm Kamala Harris because she just doesn't like the idea of her being the first woman president. Like, I feel like
Facts.
Hillary's good. Like,
I think Hillary's mad that Kamala was the first woman vice president. But yeah, I don't see how you go with anybody but Kamala without causing just an irreparable split in the party. Like your best, unless of course, like I said, she invokes the 25th Amendment and then she decides not to run in their. It's not even a primary at that point in their delegate competition.
I think that a large group of the leftists who are currently dissatisfied with the Democrat Party would come back on board for Newsom because he's done some pretty lefty stuff. Like, he had California create its own insulin, like to solve the
Yeah,
insulin problem.
and he
He raised
sells
the
it for like
minimum
40 bucks or something.
Yeah, he raised the minimum wage to $20. Like he's the most lefty guy we've had in a while, who's also mainstream.
No, except Bernie,
And
but Bernie's too old.
Bernie, I'll never forget when they declared California for Hillary the night before we got to vote in the primary. Like, I was so upset because I felt like he would have changed everything.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. Bernie was a special case, but he's just too old at this point. I mean, he's what, 88. I mean, you
He's still
can't really
more
replace
close than
Biden
Biden.
with an older guy. Oh yeah, he's still on top of it, but you can't replace Biden with an older guy. That was just bad optics.
No, it's oh, what is it? God, there was this one. There's just so much negative criticism from the inside of Kamala Harris, from like her staffers and just the staff turnovers. See, this is actually just me being interested, like in a Netflix show, right? Like, I know there's something really weird about her, um, but I want to know what it is. Like,
But I mean, I think if Kamala took over and she called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, she'd walk to the White House.
oh, totally. She'll
You'd
never do
unite
that.
the left. You'd have all the people on the left go, all right, we're getting behind this. And especially if she cut off funding to Netanyahu as soon as she took over, I mean, be it. She'd probably win 35 states.
Oh, totally. My favorite thing about Biden's list of accomplishments that they published on the White House site was that it leaves out Israel. Like, he talks about saving Ukraine and all that. There isn't a single mention of Israel.
Facts. Not one. Not one at all. Which is just wild. Like it doesn't even exist. Where, what, $100 billion is gone now?
I want to know what they've got on our politicians. Like, they've got some bad stuff. Like,
Well, there's that whole theory that like I don't know. I don't want to spread conspiracy theories, but like Mossad is not a small agency.
and that Jeffrey Epstein
Like,
was one of them.
yeah, I've heard that, but I can't confirm or deny whether I believe that.
There were people who said he was a Mossad agent.
Right?
Um,
Well, Maxwell's dad definitely was.
yeah.
That's confirmed. We know that Maxwell's dad was. So I mean, there's a lot of coincidences, and if you got film of all these people doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, it would explain why they're so gung ho for you.
The fact that they're not willing to more proudly announce their support for Israel is one of the things that leads me to believe there's something going on.
Right? Well, I also think it's hard to say you're in support of Israel when we all have film every day of just the ongoing atrocities.
It's crazy how this has continued to go on, and I think they're going to throw Netanyahu under the bus. Like, I think what's going to happen
Oh
is
yeah.
they're going to finish this off, and then the Likud party is going to get crushed in an election, and then the party that takes over is going to say, like, we did wrong. Like, we admit that we did wrong, but it was Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud, and we,
Yep. And all the soldiers who committed the atrocities will get off for it,
yes.
which is just horrible. It's horrible. But yeah, that's their plan. They're already pivoting that way. You can already hear it on both sides of our politicians that this is all Netanyahu's fault.
Yes. It's
But this isn't the first time we've done this either. It's America's like foreign policy.
you could tell. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I think TikTok's getting banned. Like, they've always gotten away with this before.
Yeah. And they don't control this algorithm. That's their problem.
I never thought I'd see so much discontent with it, and the mainstream media is not carrying it, so it's just social media that's allowing people to continue to voice this discontent.
Yeah. The media won't talk about it at all, which is the craziest thing. The only time they talk about it is when it blows up too big on social media.
Yeah.
And then they have to talk about it because otherwise everybody's like, why aren't you talking about what everyone else in the world is talking about?
It's such a strange time to be alive because it's never been more apparent that neither party represents the interests of the people, and they can continue to do that.
Yeah, which is weird, but it's because they've done a very good job of convincing Americans that voting for a third party is a waste of vote.
Well, I mean, because it is. I mean, it's so
Well,
hard
yeah,
to.
that's the thing is the reason it is though is because they've convinced Americans it is.
No,
That's the
totally.
wildest thing. Because like if all of the people who don't like Joe Biden or Trump just went and voted for the third party would win. The problem is you can't convince all those people at the same time to do that.
No, totally. And
It is like because everyone's afraid that if they don't vote for the lesser evil, then the worse evil's gonna win. When it's like, there's an option that's not evil at all, but we can't get everyone to jump on that ship.
well, it's
It's wild.
one of the things that's interesting to me is we're seeing like there's a couple things that will force like a sort of come to Jesus moment, and like one of the big ones is just the collapse in consumption. So you're like we're starting to see in quarterly earnings for the big corporations, they're like our consumption is really falling, and not just on big ticket items, on little ticket items. Like people are buying less groceries, people are doing less, of all this stuff, and that will eventually cause defaults on corporate loans, and you're already starting to see it. Like they admitted that most of the banks in the United States are sitting on a ton of bad loans for like the big commercial real estate buildings. And the only way to prevent this is to actually raise wages to resuscitate consumption. But
Yep.
neither party's willing to do that.
Well, did you see at the Davos forum that 250 billionaires and millionaires signed a thing at Davos saying they want to be taxed more because they see what's going to happen is going to end in them all being killed?
Yes.
Like they're literally like, no, take our money and give it to poor people before all the poor people rise up and unalive us all.
Even if the poor people don't rise up, their bad debts will like explode.
Right?
And the system will, because the only way the stock market keeps going up is if people can buy stock.
Yeah, well,
Like
it's the dumbest part of capitalism in general is the idea of infinite growth on a finite planet. The math don't math. Like you can't have infinite growth for forever. It just doesn't make sense to even think that's possible. And
but then the
without
question
that, the whole system collapses.
But then it becomes, how do we get off this train? Like, you would have thought the Democrats could have introduced these ideas, but they didn't even bring up the minimum wage. Like, forget the fact that Biden couldn't have passed a minimum wage rise. Like, they don't even bring it up anymore.
Well, I think that there's certain people, mainly the old people, who are they still think $7 is a lot of money because they don't actually do any shopping. You know what I mean? Like, when do you think the last time Joe Biden went to the grocery store was?
Oh, you're right.
1950? These people have no idea what like things buy or anything like that. And then I think a lot of the younger people have already adopted the idea that we need to go to a UBI because automation is going to take everybody's job anyway.
But, like, I feel like they have to realize that we're reaching the precipice with this. And I don't understand how they're going to affect that change. Like you said at Davos, they're admitting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they need actual change to occur, or we need to go over to some sort of more totalitarian system, which would
Well,
be a true.
it's like Marx said, capitalism either leads to fascism or communism. There's really no in between.
And it's like we're watching that moment in real time right now.
Yeah, yeah, and literally like it's on the split. that's that's why I said I made a video where I said this is the most interesting time to be alive in human history.
I
Like the
couldn't quote.
Romans didn't have anything like this. The Greeks, the Persians, no one ever had anything like what we have right now.
And it's like either they will reel themselves back in, or the system will collapse. And like 95% of stock are owned by a very small group of people, but the only way stock prices remain the same is if they get bought every day, right?
Yep.
And I'm surprised there's just not more discussion of this broadly. Like the project
What-
2025 was like lower taxes on the rich. Like it's crazy.
Well, like you know that stocks now, most stocks are not traded by people anymore. It's
Yeah.
just robots sending them back and forth. It's rich people's robots sending their money back and forth to other rich people's robots. It's insane. There's not even like people involved, and there's millions of dollars being made every second.
Well, why do you think we haven't been able to raise more of like an opposition to the system? Like everyone's suffering now. It's not like it's only a small group of people anymore.
Because they've done something that no other empire has ever been able to do. They've convinced the working class that half the working class is the problem. That's the most brilliant thing any group of rulers has ever figured out how to do. And they've done it through media manipulation and all of this, to where literally half of the working class thinks the other half of the working class is the problem.
But how long do you think they're going to be able to convince Republicans that LGBTQ rights are the reason you can't buy groceries?
As long as they keep going to church till they die. That you don't understand when I argue with a lot of religious people. These people literally believe that the world ending is a good thing. They want that to happen. Like you talk to them about global warming, and they think that's just signs Jesus is coming back faster. And when you're trying to argue with those people, there is no logic. There's no common sense you can bring in. Facts don't matter. Like there's no way to prove to someone that they're wrong if they don't accept facts as reality. Like if I can show you the sky is blue and you're sitting there telling me it's green, how do I win that argument if we're both looking at the same sky?
It's just surprising to me that the rise in the price of goods hasn't been the big trigger. Like,
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. It didn't cause the reaction I was expecting.
and it's still going on. Like,
Oh yeah, like housing's up so much, and that's all because of just private equity buying everything and ruining everything.
I feel like a lot of people gave up on housing a long time ago, but like, I hang out with a lot of blue collar dudes at Narcotics Anonymous, and they complain about like their energy drinks and stuff. Like they are struggling just to buy the little things they can usually get around the club that are used to be inexpensive.
Right?
Like even when you go buy like string cheese at 7-Eleven, it's expensive now. Like everything is like beef jerky is like
Yeah. I think I got a soda the other day at the store. It was just like a 20-ounce soda, and I think it was $2.90. Like, you used to be able to get like two of these for $2, and not that long ago. You know, like there used to be a 20-ounce soda was like $1. That's why, because I used to make fun of the fact that it was cheaper than water.
do you see people less people coming into your work?
No, we are
No.
packed all the time, which is weird because I don't know how anybody gets any money.
I always wonder that about Vegas too, because it's a lot of restaurants and high end stuff.
Yeah, but I also think it depends where you're at. Like, I think a lot of places that have had all that commercial real estate you're talking about, where the people still haven't gone back to work, uh, the any restaurants that in that area that like relied on uh, food, like people coming to lunch, I think a lot of them got hurt.
Oh yeah, you see that, but like like when I go to Taco Bell still every so often, it's like $20 for like a meal. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like
I haven't gone to fast food in a long time, but I I do see the signs, and I'm like, wait, does it say $6 for a Big Mac?
yeah,
Wouldn't that used to be like $2 or something? And the food hasn't gotten any better. That's one of the things that's weird though, is like it's to the point now where a burger and fries is the same price at my work as it is at McDonald's.
that's crazy.
Like you come into like our restaurant for lunch, you're probably gonna leave with for like 15 to 20 bucks for a person, but that's what you're gonna pay at McDonald's.
And I wonder if there's some bigger plan to fix this because wages aren't like with wages not going up, like, and with the corporations finally realizing losses in their quarterly earnings, like, it's like, I don't know what they're telling themselves at this point. I mean, what one of the reasons why I, in a very shameful way, like the idea of Trump getting what he wants is it would just wreck the economy completely and force the issue.
Right?
But that's sort of a Schadenfreude
What
thing.
if they do that and Trump will win? If the economy collapsed right now, Trump will win.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
mean, like they want to make everything sales tax. Did you see that?
yeah, he wants to also put 100% tariff on all imports, which is just a terrible idea.
It's just such a strange moment in time that I know you couldn't have predicted 20 years ago, and it feels like it. It used to feel like there were at least some thoughtful, intelligent people at the top who had an eye on the system more broadly, but now it just feels like a free for all.
Oh, I told you my theory about nepo babies, didn't I?
No,
Okay, so I'm a firm believer that this is what happens in every society. You have the people who build the society. Those were very competent, hardworking people. Doesn't matter what kind of society it was. Doesn't matter if it was a feudal society, a communist society. Doesn't matter. The people who built it were very competent individuals. And then they had kids. And their kids, first generation, fairly competent. They were raised by competent individuals, but they didn't actually accomplish anything, so they weren't as competent as their parents. And by the time you get to generation 5 or 6 of rich kids inheriting everything, they're just morons. And then everything is run by morons, and that's what causes everything to collapse.
I got to see that growing up in Newport Beach in California, and
It's
I still see
I
it.
literally think it happens in every hierarchy of any kind. People start leaving it to their kids, and after 3 or 4 generations of rich kids who never had to struggle for anything or accomplish anything, then you end up with morons in charge because they're all just nepo babies.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, I grew up with a lot of privilege and with a lot of kids with a lot of privilege, and they still believe like they're lawyers or doctors or whatever, and they think that they earned it, even though their parents paid for their college, paid for their graduate school,
Right?
and they're very harsh towards like the homeless and others. And you know, I'm like the only one out of that group of people who's like, don't you guys see that we were very lucky? Like, I try to remind them of that. And
Yeah, there's a huge like if you got to go to college for free, like just that puts you so far above your average American.
well, yeah, and then these are nepo babies. So like they got a job at their dad's firm or they went to their dad's medical practice, and they're very defensive though. They're like, I do work very hard though. And I'm like, okay, but like getting to the place where your work paid you the way you did, like you don't realize that we all benefited and it's a shame thing. Like I'm willing to admit, like, yes, I'm privileged. I was very lucky to, have the parents that I had or got, but like I am lucky. Like other people, it's not like I got here because I'm awesome. Okay. Like I didn't work harder than anyone. Like, and they they won't accept that. Like And it's such a strange, I mean, it's a part of their identity that, like, well, anyone could have done it.
Right?
And
Yeah, it's wild.
that's, I mean, it's the same thing that happens. I like when you watch Nancy Pelosi trading stock, like there's this bizarre disconnect between their like reality and what's actually going on. Like they still see themselves as these heroes of the working class. And it's like you have $200 million.
Right?
Like,
You're not part of the working class and haven't been since before I was born. Oh,
and
it's crazy.
I don't know
Uh,
why we don't shame people for realizing like you have enough resources to do. Why are you still working? That's the thing that I always want to ask them. It's like, why are you still working? Like, you have more than
yeah,
enough money to. Why are you still trying to accumulate?
yeah, it's crazy. Oh, I just realized there's a bunch of guests in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't see that stuff very clearly.
yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I don't know what they're supposed to do.
Well, it's organizing, right? Like I love that TikTok has been so good at increasing agitation. But like
Yeah,
the next step is like, hey, we need to get together in our individual communities and actually do something.
right. That's what we need to do is get more communal aid, like at the local level, doing things.
Well, and that was the idea of the food truck, which is still, I think, like a very
Yeah, it's just funding for that. I looked into it, like getting a new food truck's like 150 grand.
well, yeah, but it's just about creating the nonprofit that people can donate to do that. I mean,
Right,
it's about taking the conversation from the internet to reality,
right, to the actual world.
which is the most difficult part, it seems, for some reason.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to get people out of their houses nowadays. Yeah, it's just getting weird. But I do think that a food truck that gives away free food, is just a good idea.
Oh yeah, you just have to get it insured and stuff so that you can't get sued for the food. That's
Right? Yeah, I don't know how that all works.
I do. I mean, that's what I came out here to do was to stop working as a corporate lawyer and work for a nonprofit. That was why I moved. Part of why I moved to Nevada.
Well, you want to bring up some other people and see what happens?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see who's all in here.
Yeah, no, go nuts.
Oh, let's see. We'll bring her.
Yeah, we get going for a while.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, we got all these people in here. Let's bring some friends up and see what they're all doing. Uh, oh, maybe they all left. That's funny.
We talked ourselves out of it for too long.
That's funny. Well, like it was popped up on my thing, and then like I clicked two invites, and then they disappeared.
Yeah, we got to get better at using the technology.
Right. Yeah, I'm still too old for TikTok, but I'm figuring it out.
That's how
But
I
I
feel.
do think that if the Democrats don't get rid of Biden, he's gonna have a much harder time. I still think he could win just because of how much Trump is hated, but It's just crazy to me that it seems like both parties are trying to run the worst possible candidate.
I think they're out of control.
I
Like I,
mean, yeah,
it seems like a majority. Like I will bet you Obama has pulled aside Biden, and a couple other people have been like, "Hey, man, maybe you shouldn't do this." They don't want to do it out loud,
right.
but I'll bet you there
But
have been.
they need to do it out loud at this point.
I mean, I
I
think
think
the
that's like about the only thing that could actually get Biden to drop is if literally like Pelosi and Obama came out and were like, yeah, he needs to go.
I think they've been trying to give him a chance to bow out gracefully.
I think they're waiting, hoping that it'll calm down in the media enough so that he can have a health episode and they can blame it on that. Like a heart attack, a stroke, whatever. That way he doesn't have to admit his brain is because you got to remember if he comes out and says that he's not running because his brain doesn't work, the next thing everyone is going to say is, well, you can't be president until January if your brain doesn't work.
Well, and they're gonna go back to his other stuff and be like, "See, he screwed it up in January because his brain wasn't working. When did his brain actually stop working?"
And I saw on MSNBC today something interesting where the two people talking were basically saying that Biden fully backing Netanyahu is because his brain's not working. Because Netanyahu's able to manipulate him. And if they go with that logic, that's a winning strategy. If they take him out, Kamala comes out, says full ceasefire now, and blames everything on Netanyahu, that's a winning ticket.
I don't think they can. It seems like they can't go against Israel at all. I think Israel's trying to like finish it this time. Like I think this is the like.
Yeah, I do too. That's why what's his name, Kushner's already talking about real estate in Gaza. It's horrible.
Yeah, they approved 5,300 new settlements in Gaza
Yeah,
today.
it's straight up a land grab.
Well, it's like they've been working towards this movement for a long time. Like they'd bite a little bit, you know what I mean, and then they'd stop, and then they'd bite a little more, and then they'd stop, and now they're just like, we're going to finish it this time because there's no like the hostage thing isn't the issue anymore. Like they have no good cause of the war any longer, and so I think they're gonna send him and that Ben Gavir guy. Like they're gonna kick them out of Israel after this happens.
Yeah, something like that. If they don't kick him out, they might put him in jail. 'Cause he's wanted for corruption and a bunch of other stuff too that they've been like looking into.
Yeah, he almost got in trouble for like apparently his wife is just like a terrible person and was using like state money to pay for their maids and stuff like that.
Did you see that Zelensky's wife just bought a Bugatti in France? A $4 million supercar?
There was an
Like,
article saying Ukraine wasn't going to be admitted to NATO because they're corrupt.
yeah. Yeah, it's I don't understand. It's they've got to do something about what's going on. But it's like I don't see how they get rid of Biden without invoking the 25th unless he steps down because like and his it seems like his ego won't let him.
There's no other explanation because so many top level Democrats have tried to, you know, encourage him to stop.
Yeah. Well, there's 7 congressmen now who've come out and said that he needs to step down.
And senators, 4 senators. Like,
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like if that turns into 40, then I mean he has to, right?
I mean, theoretically, he never has to. But then the question becomes like, where is his confidence coming from? Is it just like pure narcissism?
like I said, I think it's the senility. I think it's like when you try to take the keys from Grandpa. He gets his brain makes him all defensive, and 'cause, I mean, the way he says like he's the only one who can beat Trump is just such a stupid statement.
I
Like
mean,
you're
I'm
saying that you're the only Democrat in the whole country who can beat Donald Trump when you're one of the only ones that's polling below him.
well, and that's the weird thing. Like his wife, I guess he asked his wife to marry him 5 times, and she's a community college teacher, and her husband looks like a moron right now. Like he had a political career that was very, I guess, respectable, and now it's all being defined by his senility, and this is what
Yeah.
he will be remembered for. And
Especially if he loses. Like he will be the president who went senile and lost to a dictator.
yeah, it's everyone wanted to get rid of Trump so badly they elected you, and then you did so badly that they reelected Trump.
It's not even that he did so badly, it's just that people are afraid his brain doesn't function. And that's why I don't think there's any getting out of this, because you can't, in order for him to convince people his brain works, he would have to go out and do like 2 hour interviews and things like that. And he can't do it. He can't. Like what he would need to do to prove his brain works, he can't do because his brain doesn't work.
Well, Andy embarrassed himself in his attempts to look better right after the debate. When he went on the radio show, when he called into Morning Joe, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, you're just confirming everything that we saw in the debate. But that's why I wonder, is his, I would hope that if I had a loving family and I were in his position, they'd be like, Patrick, like, you've been awesome.
Right? But it's time to step down before you
Yeah,
make a fool of yourself.
exactly.
Yeah, I
And
100% I would hope my family would do the same thing. Like, hey, you've done great, but you're gonna look like the guy who crapped his pants in front of the world, so maybe not.
exactly. But that's why God, I would give anything to have access to the internal, communications. Like I want to know what's wrong with Kamala because I know there's something significant, obviously, and there's a reason people aren't stoked on her, and she hasn't been allowed to be the spearhead of too many things. And then I know someone's got to be telling Biden that, oh, you should stay in this. I mean, unless his confidence is that insane. But there was talk of that, like during the Obama administration, like there's a quote where it said like there's nothing Biden can't screw up. Like they looked at him as kind of crazy and weird.
Yeah. But I still think Kamala's the best choice to replace him, just because there's too much money to leave on the floor, and you just piss off too many people if you stepped over. But I think who her VP is really the more important question. Because if she picks a good VP like Whitmer or the governor of Kentucky, and if can you imagine if the Democrats took Kentucky?
Oh, I mean I I don't think
And
Kamala's
dudes
gonna
won their governor twice.
I don't think Kamala would do much damage in the South. I think if she's an African American woman, like I know we took Georgia last time, but
I think she could get Georgia. I think she could get North Carolina.
the
Just like
thing
talking to the people I work with and stuff. Like I know quite a few people who the only reservation they have about voting for Joe Biden is the fact that they think his brain doesn't work. I
and I
literally think that any Democrat who can finish a sentence and just stand there and call Trump a liar could walk into the presidency.
but I know that Kamala doesn't listen, and that keeps coming up. Like I know that she's very confident about like her own ideas, and then she goes out and puts her foot in her mouth, and then she refuses to change. And I know that that's one of the big concerns is that if she were like unleashed and given a lot of opportunities to speak, that she would bury herself. And I
I mean, she can't do worse than Biden. And if she's that bad, you can just like keep her hidden like they have Biden, and it doesn't matter. She'll still win. All she has to do during the debate is call Trump a liar and a felon 50 times.
She's a good speaker. Like she has a good presence. Like she has a lot of characteristics that are positive. It's just this is this is kind of my perverse desire to see Kamala be the candidate, is because I want to see like, okay, what are they seeing that I don't know about yet? Like,
Right?
what is.
I don't, I can't imagine what Kamala could do to put her in a worse position than Joe Biden is.
No, it is hard to imagine. I mean, I
Like,
think that.
you'd have to find her like barbecuing babies or something. Like I just can't imagine a worse thing than the fact that Joe Biden can't cohesively communicate. And people try to say it's his stutter or whatever, but like I've seen videos of Biden when he was vice president, or even in 2020, he sounded so much more coherent.
No, he loses himself in the middle of his own discussions. Like it feels like he gets
Yeah,
lost. And
yeah,
but I the thing is I just know that there are high level operatives within the Democratic Party who are describing something when they talk about her. And I mean, I want to see it. Like frankly, like, you know, but
I mean, and to be fair, maybe she's a total bitch behind the scenes, but you know what? I kind of would like it if that came out.
I think it's more of a lack of social awareness. Like her excitement to announce her marijuana and truancy convictions. Like I think that there's some strange like brain damagey disconnect. Do you know what I mean? Like I think she's like,
I don't know. I think she just is really bad at understanding talking points.
yes.
But that's something you can get around. I don't see how you get around someone who can't remember the talking points or
Yeah.
completely gets them wrong. And, you know, I just, like I said, I can't see anything Kamala Harris could do that would put her in a worse position than Joe Biden is right now.
No, I mean I think that she does have some stigma from coming with the Biden administration. Like her approval is really low, right? But like you said, it's flatlined, which is still better than him. Um, but like the other thing is, again, and this is also a problem for Newsom, is she might have weird baggage. So like I don't know if you know, but Newsom like screwed his campaign manager's wife.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness to Newsom that he also ran on universal health care in California and then sided with the insurance companies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people in California do not like him.
No, and he's
But, I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter. Dems are going to win California no matter what.
yes. And he's a rich kid and he's got all that stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, you never know what's like because people get a different level of scrutiny when they try to take the executive position, you know.
Yeah.
And um, I mean, the fact that they're not excited to replace Biden with Kamala, the fact that anyone's even talking about this blitz primary, you know,
Yeah, it's weird. But I've heard both. Most of the people I've seen on the Democratic side who are talking about Biden stepping down are saying Kamala. Because I think they all realize that that's the easiest way to go about it. You don't have any infighting that way. They're not all going to try to, stab each other in the back or anything. Because they can say they're all going to run a positive primary, but we all know that's bullcrap. As soon as the people start digging into people, it's going to hit the news and it's. Where if you just all unite behind Kamala right off the bat, then you don't have any of that infighting, and you can start running right now. You don't have to wait until after the convention.
who do they have other than Kamala and Gavin Newsom? Like who
Oh, I
who
mean,
would
there's
yeah,
Gretchen Whitmer would jump in it in a hot second. I think Buttigieg would jump back in it in a hot second. I think as soon as you say it's an open primary, you're going to have Cory Booker. You're going to have, I mean, there's going to be 20 of them, and that's a nightmare.
They would have to create some sort of gatekeeping mechanism.
And as soon as you do that, then people are going to scream that's undemocratic and all of that. You're better off just uniting behind Kamala right now because you can do it now, and then you don't have to wait 40 days to start running ads for whoever your guy is. You could just start running ads tomorrow, and people can start donating tomorrow. Because then you're going to have people, well, I'm going to donate to Newsom's campaign, and I'm going to donate to Gretchen Whitmer's campaign, and I'm going to donate to Kamala's campaign, and you're just splitting up Democratic money. Then right then they could all be going to Donald or run against Donald Trump.
Well, and one of the things that what you're saying reveals is that the longer they wait, like the worse this is gonna be. Like,
Oh yeah. Every day that goes by that Joe Biden stays in it, it's more likely the Democrats lose.
I
Because all
just
his interviews are not assuaging anybody. I watched that phone call with where he called Morning Joe or whatever, and a
yeah.
whole bunch of people in the comments are saying it sounds like AI.
No, and
So like, if that was your saving grace, you failed miserably.
and how is it this bad? Like, I'm so surprised that it's like, does he have a plan for the next debate? Like, that's the question I have. And like, is
He
his
wouldn't be
wife?
able to remember it anyway.
Yeah, and is his wife ready to watch her husband look like an idiot again? You know, like,
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Because like, no matter what his plan for the next debate is, doesn't matter because he's gonna fail at it. Like you have to have your mind in place to remember the plan in order to execute it. He couldn't remember his opening statement. It's like a 45-second statement you prepare and memorize. And he forgot the opening statement and his closing remarks. How do you even do that?
well, and he missed that great gimme where Donald Trump said he didn't have sex with a porn star. Like, that was such a slam dunk. Like
Right?
Newsom would have crushed that. Kamala Harris, I imagine, would have crushed that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is all a good Democrat needs to do is stand on the debate stage and call him a liar and a felon over and over again. That's all you got to do. Everything he says, just be like he's a liar and a felon. That's it, and you win. And Joe Biden couldn't do that.
I mean, there's got to be something wrong at the party level, some system of hierarchical control or whatever that's preventing this
I
change.
I I really think it's the people around Joe Biden who don't want to lose their jobs. His
That's what
secretaries, his all those people. Because you got to remember, if Kamala Harris is the new president, she's going to pick a new press secretary. She's going to pick a new everything. And that means that all those people lose their jobs, and they're the people who are right next to Joe Biden.
yeah.
Like they've isolated him to the point now where they even admit that Congress doesn't have access to him. That's insane.
That's
You
so
can't have the
weird.
president not talking to Congress and the Senate. They're literally the other bodies of government. But
I
they're
mean,
afraid that he's going to have senile moments with them. And he's supposed to meet with what, all the world leaders this weekend or something?
yeah.
Isn't there like a big NATO summit? What if they all come out and say he needs to step down?
Did you say they've started communicating with the Trump campaign?
No, I'm saying like what happens if after the NATO summit the prime minister of France comes out and says, I think Joe Biden's lost his mind.
I mean, there's so much potential for damage, but like they already know. Like, and they've
Yeah,
been
but now they have media permission to admit it. And it will put a lot of the, like, think about it. If the newly elected guy for in England, because didn't the Labor Party just win huge there? And he's already got conspiracies coming out about him and all that kind of stuff. If he can come back from America and be like, Joe Biden's senile, I mean, that takes all the news off of him. And every country can do that now. They can go home and be like, I know I got problems. But if you've seen the senile guy running America, how many of them are going to do that? Now that they have media permission and backing to do it.
And that's why I just wonder, like, does his family hate him? You know, like,
I, I think they're just greedy. Like I think Hunter wants him to stay in because he's afraid the next guy after his daddy won't pardon him. And I think his wife likes being first lady. Because I mean, it seems like she's basically president at this point.
but they must real. I mean, I know Hunter doesn't care, but the wife must realize it's not a respectable position. Like, there's no women envying her right now.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And like, it's not in any way an enviable position. And like, even if he does get reelected, right, they have to go through 4 years of him coming apart. Like, if he looks like this
In front
now,
of the world.
yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to get better. That's the craziest thing of the whole thing.
I mean, there are people who believe Kamala Harris wants him to keep running because she doesn't believe she can be elected on her own, and she's just going to ride his corpse into the White House. What do you think of that
That's
theory?
just, I mean, it's a theory, but she's not that stupid. I don't believe she has a better chance of beating Trump than he does, and I think she knows it. I think she knows it. I think she just knows that she can't come out and attack Joe Biden publicly unless she has the numbers to take him out with the 25th Amendment.
Well, she does. The Republicans would help her.
No, because it's not actually the House or the Senate. It's his cabinet.
Oh.
Yeah. And they would all, like, they're basically, like, going to vote to lose their job.
I mean, they must realize if the 25th Amendment challenge is initiated, his campaign is over. No one's going to run. Yeah, no one's going to
Yeah,
vote for
this,
him.
the second, but that's the thing is, she won't initiate it unless she has the votes, and she needs 50% of his cabinet.
But don't you think they would have to go along with it, knowing that his candidacy is poisoned at that point?
Well, I think she's going behind the scenes right now and trying to collect the support and making them know, like, hey, you'll still be Secretary of Treasury or Secretary of Press after I take over. But she can't do that publicly, obviously.
Because see,
I
that's
think I'm gonna. What's it?
I know there's a ton of action going on that level, like you're talking about behind the scenes. Like I'm sure there's like a shit ton of maneuvering.
Oh yeah, there's that going on for like the Obamas are doing it, the Newsom's doing it, Whitmer's doing it. There's a lot of that going on, and Biden's just trying to hold on to his brain, I think. But I'm gonna have to get off here. I'm getting tired.
Me
But
too,
we'll
man.
do this again. We'll do another talk next week after some more craziness happens.
I have no doubt it'll become even more interesting by then.
Right? Maybe he'll drop out by then, or maybe Kamala will come up and be like, "I got the numbers. We're voting the 25th." But if she does that, she better not run.
I'm just excited for more of the drama because, like, if I took this seriously, I'd cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I understand why George Carlin said he just stands out of it and considers himself an observer. All
What else? If you got too invested, it would crush you.
right. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks for watching, guys.